Do you feel as if your productivity levels have significantly decreased ever since you began working from home? The environment may be difficult to change, but don't give up just yet. There is still hope. In today's final session of Aventis Cares, we have invited Personal and Organizational Effectiveness Master Trainer Mr. Andrew Cheah as the guest speaker. He'll be sharing with us 3 simple ways of how we can enhance our productivity and also how we may ensure peak performance throughout the day depending on whether you're a night owl or an early riser. Alright, then let's get down to business.
How is everybody? Good, and hoping that everybody is actually healthy and of course productive at the same time, which is the theme of what we want to talk about today. So a couple of ideas to share: enhancing productivity while telecommuting and working from home. So the themes are there 2, one of which is about productivity 101, that's a basic introduction. And the other one is maybe we go down a little bit more details into the timing part, which is the temporal effect that we are talking about. Maybe one of you could let us know what's that meaning of productivity.
Okay, maybe I would share what it means to me. So productivity, I would simply put, is just being able to finish my to-do list for the day.
Finish the task.
Yes, finish my task that I set up for myself. That to me is productivity.
Okay, fantastic. One more.
For me, I think it's working like at your best, like your fastest speed, or like performing at your best.
Okay, fantastic. It's completion of tasks or doing the best and so on. So maybe a little bit of quick intro on the productivity itself. It's actually, we just focus on 2 words. The first word is outcome, and the second word is effort. So overall, if you want to go a little bit technical, but not too much, is the contrast between how much effort you put in versus how much result or outcome you will be able to accomplish. So now, of course, the word outcome would be highly contextual. It really depends on what you're doing. So if you, a very simple example, of course, is sales and that sort of things. But in the type of work that you do, the ability to perhaps get as many participants as possible, that will be an example of outcome. And of course, effort can be in the context of money, how much money you spend or invested in order to generate the outcome. It can also be how much time you put in. So in that sense, if you have lower outcome, lesser outcome, is that good for productivity? The answer is actually depends, because remember, you're always contrasting. You're contrasting between 2 things, and just to have a quick view of that, one of which is the outcome, the other one is the effort you put in. Okay, so with that, you can actually have 3 ways in order to enhance productivity. Now, one of the ways is that you increase the outcome or you enhance the outcome, but you maintain your effort. So a very simple example is you put in 5 hours of work, and then you get, say, 10 units of outcome. It can be sales, it can be participants, it can be even reduction of mistakes, right? So the outcome is the one that you want. So you have better outcomes, same effort. That's one of the ways to enhance productivity. So an example at home is that if I do some stuff in the kitchen, so I just want to make sure that when I walk into the kitchen, I would walk in with my hands with, say, plates to be washed. So if I go in empty-handed, if I come out with the kitchen to bring something, so I'm actually spending double time to get 1 effort. So that's just a very simple example. So that's one, increasing the outcome, maintaining the effort. Right. Second one is increasing outcome, reducing the effort. So you actually spend less time or less effort, but you actually enhance your outcome. So that's another portion. The third portion would be the question that I asked you earlier. If you have worse outcome, is that an improvement in productivity? And the answer is yes, if your effort is much, much less. So if I use a numerical example to talk about the third example. So if you have a drop in sales, so let's say instead of $1,000, you drop 10%, it's like $900 now, right? But previously, $1,000 of sales, you put in the effort of say 10 hours, just to make the mathematics simple, right? $1,000, 10 hours. So now it's $900, 5 hours. So you're very, very productive. In fact, your productivity increased quite substantially because of the effect. So in other words, the point about productivity is that you do not have to be busy all the time, but you got to make sure that when you put in the effort at home doing things and so on, you might want to put one eye on the outcome that you want to secure. So that is just the introduction, productivity 101. So those are the three ways to summarize. You can increase productivity by increasing the outcome, maintaining the effort, or reducing the outcome, right? But making sure that your effort is much, much lower than before. So it's a ratio. Now, of course, the best is much, much more outcome and much less effort than before. So those are the three areas. But there's a fourth way of productivity, which we call it the Peter Drucker way, one of the top management guru in the modern era, Dr. Peter Drucker. And that's what he said, he said this, it is no use, it's such a waste if you spend a lot of time doing something which should not be done at all. So that's a Peter Drucker way. In other words, sometimes in the context of what we do, you can be very busy and those stuff is actually wasted because you don't need to do it. One example is in the organization. Sometimes you have meetings, and so now some meetings are very good, very productive, but not all. For instance, how do you know some meetings are very good and some are not? Well, a very easy way of looking at that is, from the Peter Drucker's point of view, is that if you attended a lot of meetings, if you notice carefully next time, right, some of the meetings that you attend, if you have a lot of repetitive ideas, meaning, last year, the story you talk until this year. So they're just spending time on doing something, but you can't get the outcome. So it's just the fourth way. In other words, the fourth way is that sometimes you don't need to do anything at all. It's also productivity because it's just something that you don't need to do. So as you know, intellectually and of course intuitively, you have, our body has a clock, right? Biological clock. You have a peak and a trough. So you and those things can affect our productivity because it can change our mood, our feelings, and our thinking and that sort of things. Okay, so this is an example where this lady, her name is Linda, majors in humanity, so the course, and she is very active in that thing. So demonstrations about injustice and unfairness and so on. So which one of these is more likely to be Linda, A or B? She's a bank teller, or B, she's a bank teller and she's very active in feminist movement. If we're talking about those two probability, the answer is A because B is actually a subset of A. Right, so if you're just talking about the question where, which one is more likely to be Linda, right? And so bank teller is actually more likely because it's a much bigger group. So it's almost like this. And then the subset of this is a bank teller and is actually active in feminist movement. So, and this is an example where you might think that it's actually a kind of a puzzle, but there's a huge implication on productivity, which is related to what we call temporal aspects. And that question has huge significance because this is what we call an example of logical and analytical thinking kind of a question. You need to think about the logic. How many of you are night owl, please? Can I see your hands? All right. And how many of you are early bird? and the reason for that is, interesting because if you have in the morning, when you're very fresh and you're very active, you should be doing things like analytical job, which requires a little bit of focus. So that's an example of productivity. And of course, when I talk about night owl and that sort of things, if you're a night owl, it means you sleep late, you might be waking up late as well, right? But if you were to wake up earlier part of the morning, if you're a night owl, you will be probably less active, less alert than the early bird. Does that make sense? And because of that, that part of, if you're a night owl, you should try to avoid doing heavy duty stuff, which are quite serious, as in the case of analytical stuff and that sort of things. Conversely, for those who are night owl, they're actually more fresh little part in the afternoon versus the early bird. And therefore, it has an inverse relationship. So for a night owl, it's better for them to spend more time during the later part of afternoon to do some serious analytical, logical stuff. What kind of job that you do would require a bit of focus, maybe even including things like logical thinking, analytical thinking. So that you need heavy, concentration.
For my job scope, I think what requires most focus would be when I actually have to plan out how I'm going to reach out to my clients.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm handling the B2B side. So for me, the focus would be having to organize the list of clients, existing or new ones that I wish to reach out to, and being able to really have a strategy in terms of how I should market to them, how I should craft the message. So that for me requires the most focus in any day.
Fantastic. So as you know, the word organizing things and arranging things, it requires a little bit of focus and concentration, maybe a bit of thinking carefully as well, logically. And so it is a kind of thing that you should try to do if you are an early bird. You do it in earlier part of the morning. But if you're a night owl, you might want to do that later part of the afternoon. So the concept of productivity is interesting because it's very much related to two things. Of course, we just talked about the so-called the productivity 101, right? Effort versus outcome. And of course, it also depends on the kind of task that you do, which we've just described, versus yourself. Are you an early bird or are you a night owl? So, and that's what I meant by the temporal aspect. If you're an early bird, then of course the earlier, later part of the morning, you become a little bit more tired because you wake up earlier, right? Okay. So those kind of what kind of tasks will be suitable? And we group them under the opposite of analytical, which is creative. So first, we have learned about productivity in general. Then we zoom into the timing part of the day, what kind of job suits what kind of temporal part of yourself, and so on. So now the next thing I would like to do is, the time that we have, we're going to zoom into the part where it's the most dangerous, which is after lunch. So how many of you have no problem after lunch and you can still stay awake? Can I see your hands? Fantastic. So that's good. So you may have some secret formula. So what I'd like to do is to share with you some general ideas on how you can actually make it happen if you are actually a so-called having trouble in managing the after lunch effect. So if I could just work with you on that, for after lunch, if you're doing high stakes job, very important job, if you have to do it, because we are working from home now, right? So you because your timing portion, depending on your organization, if it's very flexible, it's okay. They may allow you to sleep and do your job, and that's fine. But if it's inflexible, you may have to communicate with clients, for example. It's nothing wrong with your boss, it's just the nature of the job that you do. So if you have to do work past lunchtime, if the job is high stake, the typical recommendation is use a checklist. Because when, with the exception of maybe Carmen, most of us, after lunch, you really have heavy eyelids, right? So, and a checklist will be very, very helpful so that you won't make mistakes, because remember, productivity is about putting in an effort so that we have the ability to generate the correct outcome. So if you are having a low stake job after lunch, so remember, outside is better than inside. Meaning, if you have the choice, you should actually go out into either in the garden or in the balcony. Or if you cannot do that, it can be metaphorical, outside better than inside. So the word outside, you can actually have a picture that shows you maybe a forest. So that is outside compared to inside, rather than just sitting at the same place, looking at the same stuff and so on. So outside is better than inside. Okay. The other thing that you could do is that this is very much contextual depending on the body, and typically it takes about 20 to 25 minutes, typically, for the caffeine to reach your nerve, so-called. So I'm not a medical doctor, but I read a little bit about that. So which means that if you want to be productive, you can try it. You drink the coffee immediately before you take an afternoon nap. If your work allows you to do that, you can take a nap. So say you immediately drink the coffee, you try to go and sleep and in a quiet place, and you wake up, you set an alarm, right? Wake up maybe 20, 25 minutes later. So what does that mean? Well, it means that 20, 25 minutes later, when you wake up, the caffeine kicks in. So those are the quick tips and ideas that we have in terms of productivity, working from home. So just want to have a quick summary for maybe to hear from 5 of you, one at a time. What are the key learning points for today that you find useful?
I think for me, the coffee part was like quite useful. The coffee part was quite useful. I think I would actually go and try that. Because after lunch I'm always very tired, so I think that one would work for me.
Yeah, so if it works, that's fine. Again, it's very specific to the body itself. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, Abigail. And
Okay, thank you. So for myself, I think now that I understand that I'm more of a night owl, for me, I never thought about having to categorize my tasks to make it like creative or analytical. I normally just put it into one to-do list, and then I will just do whichever I feel I want to start more first, right? But now that you've shared, I think I will definitely try to categorize into creative and analytical, and then I will do them at different points of the day. So just to clarify, Andrew, you shared that the creative part should be done. Is it if I'm a night owl, creative part should be done in the morning, is it? And then analytical more towards the afternoon, am I right? So I think that's what I will try to do after this. Yeah.
thank you, Carmen. Yeah, the creativity part for night owl will be earlier part of the morning, and then of course late morning, then you can switch to analytical, or the later part of the afternoon.
For me, I feel like what you mentioned about the creative part as well as analytical parts, right? I will try doing this because like our brain work differently at different points in the day. Yeah.
An example of creativity work for 5 of you or whoever that's watching is you're trying to look at the problems that you got stuck with a problem, repeat problem for a long time, and you're not able to solve it yet. So that is what we call low-hanging fruits. So maybe you can get creative, let the thing go while, your mind, while you are not having peak hours. So
hello. So for me, I also agree with Abigail because every time after lunch, I will feel very tired and everything else cause too much food intake. So I think I will try the coffee method. Even though I already take 2 cups of coffee a day, but I will continue trying. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And of course, last but not least, Rosh.
Okay, so for me, I already do a checklist, so I think I will still continue with it because it helps me lah.
Yes, fantastic. Especially the serious stuff, yeah. That you maybe you can't afford to make mistakes. The checklist might be useful. In fact, those are the things that you see pilots and surgeons they actually do that. High stakes jobs, you can't really make mistakes. So I hope we have with the time that we are able to share something useful, so that when we work from home, we further enhance our productivity. And so have a fantastic productive day. So if you're just talking about the meeting in itself, obviously for it to be effective, you need to have an agenda, which is a kind of a checklist. But the other thing which I feel from my experience is that the person organizing the meeting, most likely is the boss, the senior person. He or she would need to be able to really understand what meeting effectiveness is. For example, if you stick to the timing, so do not allow the conversation to get out of hand. In fact, so I find it useful if you put in the productivity context. For example, if you recall the Productivity 101 introduction, it's about outcome versus effort. So I always find it very, very helpful for the meeting to list down the outcome that we want to achieve for that particular meeting. So with that, everybody can anchor their thoughts onto those. So for this, that's one, I think, very specific example that I find some meetings very useful. They not only they talk about the agenda, 9 to 9:15, what's the agenda, but each and every agenda at the beginning of the meeting, they actually have this outcome that we want to achieve. For example, how to ensure that we have a lot of people signing up. So everybody can anchor their thoughts and focus on the outcome. So otherwise, the meeting would not be so effective and not so productive. So that is one of the examples where we can marry the idea of productivity concept towards the meeting in itself. Of course, we can go further. So the person in charge or the team members who are attending the meeting, if you know yourself as a night owl, so if the meeting is early in the morning, and if it's really significant, as I've said just now, you can actually combine those things already. Have a checklist for the things that you want to say, have an idea that you want to talk about. And if the problems are repetitive, it requires a bit of creative thinking. If I'm in charge of the meeting, I would actually ask the night owl to share more ideas in the morning.
And it's a wrap. Thank you everyone for following us through these 3 sessions of Adventist Cares, and we earnestly hope that the tips and the practices that you've learned from our guest speakers will be helpful in getting you through this rough season. If you have enjoyed what you've learned from any or all of our Adventist Care sessions, please feel free to spread the love and care by sharing this video with your colleagues, your loved ones, and your friends. So finally, please stay safe and healthy during this entire period, and we hope to see you at Adventist real soon. This is Carmen from Adventist, signing off.